Asher Kiddushanu b'mitzvotov v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shal Shabbat.
Amen.
Amen. Would you like to continue, Lois or Simon, with a prayer at the bottom of the page?
Yeah, Lois is in total control here. Have to be careful, we live in a wooden house.
We praise the eternal God, sovereign of the universe, who sanctifies by your commandments, join us in the Sabbath lights.
Amen.
The Sabbath has descended to enfold us in the middle of the mantle of peace. It brings us precious time to embrace family and friends, to reflect more deeply on the meaning and purpose of our lives, and to worship in the beauty of holiness. May our Sabbaths always be sanctuaries of love and devotion, bringing contentment to our hearts, happiness to homes, and blessings to our people.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaShabbat, Shalom Malachei HaShabbat.
Sorry, it's gone into format now.
Malachei HaMalachim HaKadosh.
You need to mute a few people.
Shalom Malachei HaShalom. Malachei Elyon Elyon. B'melech HaMalachim HaKadosh. Shalom, shalom, Malachei shalom, Elyon, B'melech Malachei HaMalachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I invite Rosie and Jeff now to unmute and recite Psalm 97 responsively.
And people need to mute themselves.
What do you want me to do?
You start. If you like.
Are we unmuted?
Yeah.
Rabbi David, can I just tell you, Gary's gone to turn on his main computer so that he hopefully can pick up on the liturgy very shortly.
Okay, sorry.
We can go ahead. The eternal one reigns, let the earth rejoice.
Let the many isles be glad.
Clouds and darkness surround you.
Righteousness and justice are the foundation of your throne.
Your lightnings illumine the world.
The earth sees and trembles.
Mountains melt like wax before you, O God.
Before the ruler of all the earth.
The heavens proclaim your righteousness.
All the people glory.
Zion hears and is glad.
The daughters of Judah rejoice in your judgment.
For you are supreme over all the earth.
You are excelled far above all other gods.
Light dawns for the righteous.
And joy for the upright heart.
Let the righteous rejoice in you.
And give thanks to your holy name.
Thank you very much. Fiona and I are going to now sing Yedid Nefesh. Yedid Nefesh, Avarachaman, Meshov Devar, El Retzonecha, Yarutz Avdecha, Kamo Hayom. Yishtachaver mol hadarecha, Yeramnu yedidotecha, B'nofem shuv b'chol Ufros Avivi Alai Sukkot Shalom Erev Mitzvotecha Nagila V'nispahamu Ma'ehu Kiva Moed Omeinu Ime Olam. Thank you, Gary. We now got a text on screen. We'll notice the second line of the second verse. It says, Higalena ufros havivi alai et sukat shlomach, which means, show yourself, O beloved, spread over me the sukkah of your peace. Let's jump now to page 92 for the Baruch Hu. Could I invite Simon Bencher to sing Baruch Hu for us, please?
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Beautiful, thank you. Can I ask Peter and or Pam to read the next prayer, top of page 93? So, have we got the Audivas here? Maybe
We've got Peter Cowell.
Sorry, Peter Cowell, sorry.
Okay. We praise you, Eternal One, our God, Sovereign of the universe, whose word brings on the evening, whose wisdom opens heaven's gates, whose understanding changes times and seasons, and whose will sets the stars in their courses in the sky. You make day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light. You make day pass and bring on the night, and separate day from night. You rule the hosts of heaven. We praise you, O God, whose word makes evening fall.
Baruch atah Adonai, Amariv Aravim. Where Fiona and I are sitting, we look up in this absolutely clear sky. I can see a lovely star twinkling. I don't know if Fiona has, but my sight it's better than hers. Mel and Sylvie, could you sing Ahavat Olam, please? Is it the star?
Oh, yeah.
Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amcha Torah u'mitzvot u'kim u'mishpatim otanu limadata Al kein Adonai Eloheinu V'shofteinu u'hukmeinu nasiach b'chutkecha v'nishma b'divrei Torata u'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed ki hem chayenu v'orech yomeinu uvahem negei yomam v'layla ve'ahavatcha atasur mimenu le'olamim Baruch atah Adonai Ohev Omo Yisrael.
Thank you. Over to you, Simon, for the Shema, if you don't mind.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod, Shem Kavod, Malchuto, Leholam, Leholam Vahed. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, v'chol avavecha, u'v'chol nafshecha, u'v'chol ma'otecha. V'hayu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anochi metzacha hayom, Ala levecha, v'shinantam levecha, v'edamtam bam, v'shitecha v'eitecha, v'levecha v'alderech, v'shatecha ufumecha, v'shatecha la'ot al yadecha, v'hayu letotavot beinenecha, v'zamtam al mezazot beitecha, v'visharecha. You shall love the Eternal One your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. Let these words which I command you this day be always in your heart. Teach them diligently to your children. Speak of them in your home and on your way, when you lie down and when you rise up. Bind them as a sign upon your hand. Let them be like frontlets between your eyes. Inscribe them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates.
Thank you, Simon. Laman
Tizkeru vasitem et komitzvotai Vitem kadoshim lelohem Ani Adonai Elohim Asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim Liot lahem le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohim.
Adonai Elohim. Emet. Could I ask perhaps Helen Friedman to read the next prayer? Emet. All this we hold to be true.
All this we hold to be true and sure. You alone, Eternal One, are our God, and we are Israel, your people. You have freed us from oppressors and delivered us from tyrants. You led us out of Egypt forever to serve you in freedom. When we witnessed your power, we praised your name and gave thanks. Willingly we accepted your rule. Then, full of joy, we sang together.
Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha neda b'kodesh, nora tehilo osefet, Adonai yimlo leolam va'ed. V'nema yifad Adonai et Yaakov. Ugalom miyad chazak b'menu. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. We praise you, O God, the Redeemer of Israel. I ask perhaps Ron or Louise to unmute to read Hashkivenu, grant eternal God. John, Louise? Lovely to see you both, by the way. Can you unmute bottom left corner?
Unmute yourselves.
Okay, hear me now?
That's right.
Okay. Grant, eternal God, that we may lie down in peace, and let us rise up to life renewed. Spread us over the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your wise counsel, and for your name's sake be our help. Shield us from sickness and war, from famine and distress, and keep us from wrongdoing. Shelter us in your shadow of your wings, for you are our guardian, our deliverer, a gracious and merciful God. on our going out and coming in, that now and always we may have life and peace. We praise you, O God. May your sheltering peace descend on us and all who dwell on earth.
Thank you very much, Don and Louise. And once more, you see in the Khatimah, the end of that blessing, it's translated as God's sheltering peace, but the Hebrew is really, may God spread over us the sukkah of God's peace, Sukkot shalom. So again, that metaphor is used. The sukkah of peace spread over us and all the world. Just before we go into the Amidah, just to warn you that there's a little prayer in the middle added especially because it's the intermediate day, and you won't find that on your screen. Adonai Shabbat Titrahu Fia Gitahilatecha. Adonai Shabbat Titrahu Ufia Gitahilatecha.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu ve'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chashtei Avot ve'Imahot, U'mevii Geulah livnei v'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo v'Yahava, Melech Ozer Mashiach Maged, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. We praise you, O God, the shield of Abraham, the protector of Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, mechayei metim atah rav lahoshia. Mashiv haruach u'morit hageshem, mazriach hashemesh u'morit hatar. V'gogel ha'im b'chesed, v'chayei metim rachamim rabim. Shomech noflim v'rofei holim u'matir ashurim, v'kayem emunato l'shenei afar. V'chamocha al gevurah, Omid Amelach, Melech Deimid Machayeh Umah, Matzniach Yeshua, Ne'amanata l'chayot metim, Baruch atah Adonai, l'chayei hametim. We praise you, O God, the source of eternal life. You are Kadosh atah v'norah shemecha, ve'ein lanu Eloha mibaladecha. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. Bottom of page 99. Yismachu b'malchutah, Yismachu b'malchutah, Shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg. Amar kadosh shvi, Amar kadosh shvi, kulam yishba'u v'yit'amdu mitubecha, v'hashvi, v'hashvi, v'tzita bo v'kidashto, emdat yamim oto, kata zecher maseh torei. Turn to page 100. Could I ask Bev to unmute yourself to read the next prayer, if you don't mind? That's right.
Our God and God of our ancestors, may our rest on this day be pleasing in your sight. Sanctify us by your commandments and make us loyal to your teaching. Satisfy us with your goodness, gladden us with your salvation, and purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In your gracious love, Eternal One, let the holiness of your Sabbath enter our hearts, and may all Israel who hallow your name be exalted by its cease. Praise you, O God, for the holiness of the Sabbath.
Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. We're about to reach this special prayer for the intermediate days of the festival. V'tzei Adonai Eloheinu b'yamcha Yisrael u'tefilatam b'ahavat tekabel u'tehi levatzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha. Our God and God of our ancestors, be mindful of us and all your people of the house of Israel. Grant us well-being and blessing, life and peace on this festival of Sukkot. Zochreinu Adonai Eloheinu Bolo Tova. This day remember us for well-being.
Amen.
Ufokdenu bo livracha. Bless us with your presence.
Amen.
V'hoshienu bo lechayim. Grant us renewed life.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai she'otaka levadacha v'yira na'avod. We praise you, O God, whom alone we worship in reverence. I ask Tony now to continue with the Modim. Could you unmute, please? Unmute, Tony. That's right.
מודים אנחנו לך שאתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו לעולם ועד. צור חיינו מגן ישועתנו, אתה הוא לדור ודור. נודה לך ונספר תהילתך על חיינו המסורים בידיך, על נשמותינו הפקדות לך. ועל נשיאך שבכל יום עמנו, ועל נפלותיך וטובתך שבכל עת ערב ובבוקר וצהריים. Baruch Adonai, Atav Shimcha Ulecha Na'eh Lahodot. We praise you, O God, source of goodness, and our thanks are due.
Thank you, Tony. Shalom Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. כי אתה הוא מלך גדול לכל השלום, כי אתה הוא מלך גדול לכל השלום. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. הטוב בעיניך לברך. כל ישראל, בכל עת ובכל שעה, בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. Baruch atah Adonai Oseh Shalom. We praise you, O God, the source of peace. Amen. We continue now with some moments of silent prayer. Gary, could we now move to page 607? Page 607. think we've gone past it, haven't we? Maybe your numbers are different to my numbers. Okay, I'll say the prayer in my, but I think your new number system different from mine, Gary. Eternal God, we thank you for the gift of life and for the healing powers that you've implanted within your creatures. Sustain, we pray, all those whom we love who may be going through a time of illness. In particular, we mention the following names: Richard Wheeler, Ashley Marks, Gary Bronzeit and his mother, Hilda, Linda and Gerald Lewis Azayer, Michael Mather, Stephanie Kirsty, Ruth Spivak, Jeff and Barbara Keller, Linda Gould, Trudy Herstein, Rabbi Monique Meyer, Rebecca Young, Robert Hurst, Stephen Phillips, Harry Rothschild, Alan Nienberg, Jane Shaw, Derek Rickler, Ian Nissenbaum, Claire Knowles, Simon Buskin, Shelley Lample Joseph, Stephen Isaacs, Bernard Young, Tony Fincher. Would any people want to add any other names? If you'd like to wave and unmute to just add the names. So that's Sue and Steve Fenton.
I'd just like to say Adrienne has got COVID, so I want to wish her well.
I'm sorry to hear that. Hope she'll be over soon. And Peter?
Yes, I just want to mention, it's going to sound rather strange saying my former mother-in-law, but my former mother-in-law who is unfortunately, well, in her last days.
I'm sorry to hear that, Peter.
I'd like to mention our friend and neighbour Ruth Barnard.
Grant all these people the courage and the strength they need.
Hold on. I'd like to mention.
Sorry.
I'd like to mention a couple of very good friends. Terry Roster, who had heart surgery yesterday, and a friend of ours, Michael, another friend, Michael Tyndall.
Thank you, Gary. Grant all these individuals courage and strength to endure their pain and weakness. Teach us how best we may help them by our love and our care for them, and by our own composure. May all who are ill know that you, O God, are with them, you comfort them, you reinforce their will to get well. May their afflictions soon be ended, so they return in health to family, friends, and community. May it be your will, Eternal One, our God and God of our ancestors, speedily to grant perfect healing both of body and mind for all who are sick. We praise you, O God, the source of healing. Yehi ratzon milfanecha, Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu, shetishlach meheira refuah shalema, refuat hanefesh, urefuat haguf, l'chol hacholim, b'toch kihila shelanu. Baruch atah Adonai, Rofei hacholim. Amen. Over to you, Sylvia Millenbach. Sylvia.
May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, be acceptable to you. Oh God, my rock and my redeemer. God, my rock and redeemer.
Oh, say shalom b'momavu, yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol b'nei Adam. Well, we're now in what's in Hebrew called Chol Hamoed Sukkot. Chol means an ordinary day, Moed is the season. It's one of the middle days of the 7 days of this festival of Sukkot, the Shabbat. Chol Hamoed, the Shabbat that falls during Sukkot. And yesterday, Well, it'd be lovely if all of you could be with me and Fiona in our sukkah this evening. We've got plenty of space for everybody to squeeze together, maybe next year. But it was lovely yesterday lunchtime. We had a large group of people having a study session at lunchtime, including 3 people who are with us this evening. So I would like to ask for their indulgence, because I will be now repeating some of the things we discussed yesterday lunchtime in the study session. But I do want to share it with other people. And by the way, it's lovely to see a new face here. I've never seen, is it Momo? Welcome to our service. And I hope you'll come soon and be a guest in our sukkah. Because over this festival, it's a great mitzvah to invite guests, not just the family, but all our friends and new people and old people. Everybody should share the joy of this special time. So all of you, I expect, know all about the sukkah.
Sorry, 1 second.
Sorry?
Sorry, I was having a bit of a problem with my Wi-Fi, so my connection's sort of lagging, but...
All right, well, it's lovely to hear your voice as well as seeing you as well. From childhood, we know all about the sukkah. We know all about the 4 species, lulav and etron. But what we don't know so much about is what I'd like to speak about this evening, which is about these middle days, the days which are not the first day, Yom Tov, the last day, which is Simchat Torah, but the middle days. Because in ancient times, in Bible times, in temple times, this festival of Sukkot was the big one. It was by far the most important festival of the year. There were 3 great festivals called the foot festivals, because people made a pilgrimage on foot from wherever they lived in the land to the temple in Jerusalem. They did that at Pesach, they did that in high summer at Shavuot, and the last and greatest foot festival was Sukkot, which marked the end of the summer harvest of fruits, in particular figs, pomegranates, dates, olives, and grapes. So those were the 5 fruits which were in orchards and vineyards in the land of Israel in Bible times. The end of that harvest, in particular, the grape harvest, because the grapes had to be pressed and squeezed and turned into wine as soon as possible. And again, not in this country, but in the land of Israel, this time of the autumn equinox, when day and night are equal in length, was the change of seasons. In England, we have 4 seasons, spring, summer, autumn, and winter. In Mediterranean countries like Israel, there are just 2. There's the hot, dry of the summer, and then the rains come, please God, in the winter. So significant for them, because without rain, the crops would not grow. The next year, people would face starvation. We, thank God, take for granted that the rains come, probably too many rains, and we always have water in our taps, hopefully water in our fields. That may not be something we can take for granted in future years. So it was a harvest festival, and also prayers for thanking God for the existing harvest and praying to God to send rain so there would be a harvest in the future. Huge numbers came, the preeminent festival. And it's mentioned several times in the Bible. It is rather ironic because nowadays perhaps we think as Pesach as the biggest, most important festival, or maybe Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. So I believe that Sukkot tends to be somewhat neglected, which is a pity, because it was the other way about in Bible times. What happened at Sukkot? But when King Solomon built the first temple, it was consecrated. Big celebrations. They brought the Ark of the Covenant. They brought it and put it inside the Holy of Holies in the temple. Solomon led some major prayers. It's all described in the first book of Kings. That took place at Sukkot. Many years later, after the exile to Babylonia, they returned in the 6th century before the Christian era. Book of Nehemiah, right at the end of the Bible, describes the return. And Nehemiah inaugurated a new life for the returning exiles, and he had a Torah reading during the period of Sukkot. You may have already heard that this particular year, after this Rosh Hashanah, is a special year in the cycle of 7, the Shemitah year. I'm not going to go into details about that, but because the agricultural laborers were free of their normal work, then again, in the Shemitah year, there was a Torah reading during the middle days of Sukkot. Why was it practical? Because thousands and thousands of people were gathered together in one place in a time where there wasn't Zoom and there wasn't radio, there wasn't television, there weren't mobile phones. So to teach people in a large group, you had to have them physically in one place. And there weren't hotels in those days. So with thousands and thousands of people crowding out Jerusalem, where did they spend the nights? Those lovely warm nights under a full moon. Everybody built their own little sukkah to sleep in. Finally, no, not finally, 2 more things. Another prophet, Zechariah, he looks forward to the days of the Messiah. Messianic hopes. Zechariah says when the Messiah comes, it won't just be the Israelites celebrating Sukkot in Jerusalem. All nations will come to the temple in Jerusalem during Sukkot. And finally, those who may want to read the New Testament will know that in the Gospel of John, chapter 7, Jesus, who's a Galilean up in the north, he's encouraged by his followers and his brothers to go down to Jerusalem during Sukkot. And at first, Jesus is reluctant. He says, my time is not come yet. What is his time? Obviously, his followers believed that Jesus himself was the Messiah, and he had to be in Jerusalem to reveal himself. Well, he did go to Jerusalem at Sukkot. He went into the temple. He argued with the rabbis, and he had a great following. But 6 months later came the great trial and the crucifixion, not at Sukkot, but at Passover time, 6 months later. You might have heard the words of Isaiah. Ushavtem mayim b'sason mimanei ha'yeshua. Ushavtem mayim b'sason mimanei ha'yeshua. That's the words of Isaiah, which means you shall draw water from the wells of Yeshua, salvation. Of course, Jesus' name in Hebrew is Yeshua, from the springs of salvation. That's what people sing during Sukkot in temple times. They also sang Hoshiana, please God, save us now. Hoshiana, Hoshiana. It's in the Hallel. We sing Hoshiana when we shake the lulav tomorrow during Hallel. In English, Hoshiana is translated as Hosanna. Hosanna in excelsis in Latin. But the Hebrew is save us now, Hoshiana. So people, large numbers, lots of drink, fresh wine was flowing. People went wild. It was a great party. I mean, Glastonbury had nothing compared with Simchat Beit HaShoeva, the joy of the water drawing in the middle days of Sukkot. They didn't do it on the first day. They didn't do it on the Shabbat, but it was the 5 intermediate days, described in enormous detail, not in the Bible, but in the Mishnah and the Talmud. And this is so unfamiliar to contemporary Jews. Simply because we don't have a temple, we don't do this anymore. It's only of historical interest. The priests, the young priests, they took their old clothes, their white garments, which were grubby by now, and they had huge candelabra, very, very tall, which were so big that they were visible from above the Temple Mount walls. And they had huge amounts of olive oil mixed in with these old clothes. They set light to it past bonfires. And that gave illumination, not just in the temple overnight where people were singing and dancing, but all through the city of Jerusalem. It was lit by these vast olive oil bonfires high on golden candelabra. And in the atmosphere of elation and joy, it's quite surprising. I'd just like to quote from you. In the Talmud, it describes some of these great rabbis, and you imagine rabbis are very serious, solemn people, very sanctimonious, pious, tzaddikim, but they could also enjoy themselves. These were religious ravers, and after all the spirituality of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, they let their hair down, metaphorically. And it says in the Talmud, during Simchat Beit HaShoeva, the ceremony of the water drawing in the temple on the middle days of Sukkot, one Rabbi Shimon ben Gamaliel, he rejoiced at the place of the water drawing. What did he do? He used to take 8 lighted torches and juggle with them, threw them in the air and throw one off the other, and they never touched one another, none of them dropped. So they juggled, juggling rabbis. This is something they never taught me at the Liabet College. And also Shimon ben Gamaliel, he went down and he did press-ups. He went prostrate in the temple courtyard and he lifted it up, not with his palms, but just with his thumbs on the ground. So the Talmud reports. He must have had very strong thumbs as well as strong biceps. I'm not sure if we should recommend that to us nowadays. And finally, in Babylonia, hundreds of years later, no more temple, but Rabbi Levi used to juggle. Samuel used to juggle with 8 knives. Another juggled with 8 glasses of wine. Can you imagine? 8 glasses of wine and not a drop of wine falls out. And Abai juggled with 8 eggs, or some people say only 4 eggs. Well, it's difficult enough nowadays for people to cope with the 4 species, with the lulav and etrog, and shake them in the right sequence in the right way. So I think once we've mastered the art of taking the 4 species, perhaps we should try. Tony, would you like to try juggling with 4 eggs to celebrate the middle days of Sukkot? So I wish you all Chag Sameach. And of course, the important thing is to remember that not just Judaism, but many religions have to be a balance between sorrow and mourning and seriousness and spirituality, but also the release, which we celebrate at Purim, which they used to celebrate in the middle days of Sukkot. And next week, please God, we will celebrate at Simchat Torah, when with Gary and with Judy, we'll be dancing and celebrating round our shul. Thank you. We'll now end the service, please, with Aleinu on page 520. 520. Did you adjust the end?
Yep, sorry. Shabbat on Hakol, la tekadula liot separation. Shesam halkenu liachid shemo, v'kolinu amik mohuto. V'alachnu korinu mishtachavimu modim, Livnei melech malachei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shehu notes shamayim v'yosef haaretz, u'moshev yekaro b'shamayim imal, u'shechim natuzo, v'gofrei meromim, u'Eloheinu einod, emet malkeinu efes ulato, v'katu b'torato, yadata hayom v'hashevota el levavecha, ki Adonai hu Elohim, v'shamayim imal, v'yal haaretz, v'itach ein od. Effie, could I ask you now to unmute and recite the next trusting in you, please?
Effie Hazan?
It went on mute, sorry. Trusting in you, eternal God, we hope soon to behold the glory of your might, when false gods will vanish from our hearts, and idolatry ceases forever. Help us to perfect the world by bringing it under your unchallenged rule, when all will invoke your name, relinquish evil, and turn to you alone. May all who dwell on earth come to know that to you every knee must bend and every tongue swear loyalty. Before you, let them humble themselves, and to your glorious name let them give honor. Let all submit to your sovereign rule. May that time come soon and last forever. For ultimate sovereignty is yours, and to all eternity you will reign in glory. As it is written, the Eternal One shall reign forever.
Bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shamo echad.
Page 522. Thank you. As we worship before you, the middle days of this festival, we also think of those who once shared with us the joys as well as the burdens of life, who are no longer in our midst. In particular, this Shabbat, we remember the name of Peter Ordiva's father, Isidore Ordiva, Mel Millenbach's mother, Esther Millenbach, Susan Salfati's mother, Frances Silverstein, Leigh Baruch's stepfather, Murray Myers, and Alan Mitchell's mother, Rebecca Mitchell. May their memories be a blessing. The sorrow of bereavement is softened by the bond of love that continues to unite us with all our dear ones, and by our memories of them which we always carry in our hearts. May all that was good in their lives remain with us as an influence for good. O God, grant consolation to those in sorrow and light to those in darkness. Teach us at all times to put our trust in you and to praise your name. I'd like to invite Mel and Peter Ordiva now to unmute and lead us in Kaddish. Cool. Peter Ordiva is not here. No. Sorry, just Mel.
Yitkadal v'yitkadosh shemei rabbah.
Amen.
Divrei kurutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayachon v'yamayachon v'chadav kol beit Yisrael v'agala uzman kariv v'rimru amen. Yeh shemei rabbah mevaroch la'alam alma almi alma yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yisba'er v'yisbaramam v'yisnosei v'yisadal v'yisalei v'yisal Lal Shemei Kedusha Baruchu. Elom bin Kol Barachatav Shirata Tishbachasa V'Nichmata Amiram Ba'al Ma V'Imru Amen. Yesh Lama Rabba Mishamayim Mishamaya V'Chayim Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael V'Imru Amen. Amen. Shalom Bimromov. Shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol b'nei Adam v'imru. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. I'd like to pass over to our Vice Chair, Stuart.
Thank you, David. Shalom to you all. Thanks, Rabbi David, for leading tonight. For quite a few hosts tonight. Helen, Gary, Adrian, Effie. I'm not sure who did what, but thank you, everyone, for hosting and for all who took part. Sorry. Tomorrow morning, the Chol Hamoed Shalanu service begins at 11 o'clock, hosted by Rabbi Richard and Miss Sampson and Tommy Precious. And of course, we've already mentioned the very special Simchat Torah services. They're on Monday evening at 6:30 and at 10:45 on Tuesday morning. They're both hybrid services. So we'll be in the synagogue and we'll be on Zoom. I'm not sure if there's places available. I guess there may be places available on the Tuesday morning. I'm not sure about the Monday evening. Gary and Judy will probably know. But
I think they've all been taken, Stuart, as far as I know.
And Tuesday as well?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. Oh, well, okay. Oh, sorry, there aren't any space, sorry. I mean, we have to restrict the numbers, obviously, at the moment for safety, and hopefully the situation may be resolved, I know, at some point. But, of course, we're honouring Gary and Judy, both here tonight, who've done so much for us during this the time of COVID, both in front of and behind the scenes, in front of the cameras and behind the scenes, and they're, you know, a great record of service between the both of them, and rightly honoured. 11s is every weekday morning at 11 a.m. of course, apart from this Tuesday. Open paying classes are beginning Tuesday and Wednesday evenings for beginners and intermediates respectively. The quizzes are back. They're starting again next Sunday, not this Sunday, but the following Sunday, 3rd of October. And it's hosted by Rachel and Russ, so there'll be plenty of giggling. Details of the High Holy Day Appeal are still up on the update, with details of everything else that goes on as well, and the details of the Hagesha, which is now available to read on the website. Mel, wish you a long life on behalf of everyone and to all who mourn. Shabbat shalom, Chag Sameach, take care. Thanks, David.
Unmute.
Thank you, Stuart. To the service, rather than Adonai, I'll sing again, hopefully with Fiona, the messianic verse from Isaiah. With joy shall you draw water from the wells of salvation. Please join in with me.
Shabtem mayim b'sason mimanei haYeshua. Shabtem mayim b'sason mimanei haYeshua. Mayim, 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 mayim. Shabtem mayim b'sason. Mayim, 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 mayim. Umayim b'sason. Hey, 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 hey. Shabtem mayim, shabtem mayim, shabtem mayim b'sason. Hey, 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 hey. Shabtem mayim, shabtem mayim, shabtem mayim b'sason. Now, can we move, please, to the Kiddush on page 564. Candles are just about to gutter on. Good timing.
It's lovely making Kiddush outdoors. We ought to do this more often, Fiona. I wish we had such lovely, warm, mild evenings more frequently in this country.
Vayelokei yom hashishi, vayahul hashamayim v'haaretz v'chol tzva'am, vayachal Elohim b'yom hashvi'i v'lakto asher asa, vayishpot b'yom hashvi'i mikol malakto asher asa, vayavarech Elohim et yom hashvi'i v'yakadesh oto, ki bo Shabbat mikol malakto asher bara Elohim la'asor. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Olei peri hagafen. Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'yavar v'ratzon hingilanu zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit ki hu yom tehillah l'mikra'ei kodesh. Let's see of Mitzrayim, Ivanu b'chatav yotanu kidashta mikol hamim, v'shabbat kodshecha b'yahava u'b'ratzon imchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-Shabbat. Amen. L'chaim.
L'chaim, everyone. And Chag Sameach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Hamoed lechem min haaretz.
Amen. Just before you all unmute and have a chat, I'll see if you can just see the ceiling of the sukkah. Because if you haven't been inside the sukkah before, you'll see how beautiful it can be with all the beautiful coloured fruits hanging. Let's see what you can see.
Oh, fruit hanging.
Oh, yeah, lovely.
I like it when the fruit hangs and the
I
flower.
like the sukkah.
That's as well. It never rained tonight.
Yeah, no, it's been beautiful.
Being in the
It's been a great weather, isn't it?
It's absolutely spot on.
Well, Jewish holidays
Jewish
are not allowed to
holidays.
not allowed to rain.
Yeah.
Can I just say, this time of year, Sukkot is a very good time to get hold of on Netflix or wherever you can find it, an Israeli film called Ush Bizin.
Ush Bizin!
And it's a very funny film. It's all about Sukkot and the spirit of Sukkot and a lot of criminality going on.
Let's cut out the criminality.
In the Orthodox part of Israel, where it was all filmed. It's a very good film.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
I was just saying, did any of you see at all, just in the last few days, in Tel Aviv, there was the Orthodox chap with the mobile sukkah. He got around on roller skates, and he holds it as he goes down the street.
I saw it on Facebook.
Well, if you've got a convertible car or car with a sunroof, of course, there's nothing to stop you from opening your car, putting sechach on the top, and then again you're on the mobile
would agree with buying a Merc with a convertible top on it.
I have to say that I've got for this year only, I've beaten everyone. We've had a new roof put on our house this week, so we had a completely open sukkah house.
You should have covered it with sechach, with leaves. I remember when my daughter Liana was a student in Cambridge, she built a sukkah on a punt. So it was another sort of mobile sukkah. It was